Well, I think we will get started. I think there's lots of people here, which is just so wonderful. Thank you all for joining us. I'm just going to set up. So my name is Sherry. I'm the MC for this evening, and on behalf of the Counseling Committee of the Baha'i Community of Ottawa, I would like to welcome all of you to this very special session tonight. And I'm very excited to have the honor of introducing our speaker. So although I only got to meet Suzanne virtually this evening, I've been aware of her work for nearly 20 years. So it was probably 17, 18 years ago, I was working with someone, let's just call her my little sister, because she's certainly my spiritual sister. And as we were working together, she met somebody, she started to get to know somebody. And the next thing I knew, everywhere this young girl went, this big, thick green workbook was to her arm. And there it is. Marriage Can Be Forever, Preparation Counts. It was dog-eared, it was highlighted, it had writing all over it. And I would say once a week or so, I would get an update on which chapters they'd worked through and what they'd discovered about themselves. So that's when I first learned about Suzanne Alexander. So we have Suzanne with us this evening. She's a relationship and marriage educator and a certified character specialist. She has founded her Baha'i-inspired company called Marriage Transformation. She's passionate about helping people build their knowledge and their skills through the books that she writes, the online courses she offers, and assessments and coaching, which now is done globally, virtually. So she helps clients all over the world. She's co-authored the Baha'i-based books. The one she just held up is the first one that I knew of, Marriage Can Be Forever, Preparation Counts, as well as another one, Starting With Me, Knowing Myself Before Finding a Partner. And that's that book. Suzanne has been a Baha'i most of her life. She has been single, she has dated, she has been married, divorced, and widowed. And all of that experience, in addition to being a child, a stepchild, a parent, grandparent, and step-parent, all of that life experience comes together with the work that she's done to help us better our own characters and our own relationships. So interesting point. I thought Suzanne is originally from Canada, so we feel a particular kinship, although she now lives in Tennessee, where she is obviously enjoying much warmer weather than we are up here. So tonight, Suzanne has prepared a presentation that will last for approximately 30 minutes. The session is being recorded, as you will have noted. You will have received the little notice. At the end of that 30 minutes, we will have up to an hour for questions and answers. So if you wish to ask a question, please type it into the chat. You will have the option to send it privately to me, as I'm one of the co-hosts. So send me your question and I will be presenting the questions to Suzanne during the question and answer period following the presentation. And without further ado, I turn it over to Suzanne. Thank you and welcome. You can't unmute? We have our tech support, they're online. Can you?
There we go.
There we go. We've got it fixed.
We always do these technical checks ahead of time, and then there's often something that trips us up. We could blame it on the blizzard in Canada. How about that? Goodness. All right. Oh, wait a minute. Here's the next technical problem. I need to share my screen. Okay, here we go. Hello everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight, joining all of us tonight. And I will apologize ahead of time. I'm kind of at the end of a cold here, so I'm going to do my best to have my voice be smooth for you. We're talking tonight about character, which is something I'm very passionate about. And the focus really is on people who are not yet married. My hope, though, since I would imagine a number of you are already married, is that what you will learn tonight will help you help other people, and it will also help you to remember to include character in your marriage as well. So the Baha'i writings, Baha'u'llah specifically, talks about character being brighter than the light of the sun. So each of us then is invited to shine out in the world to other people. We're all born with the capacity to develop many, many character qualities. And it's this combination of all of the qualities that helps us to recognize that we have a character. Each of us has a character. And I'm sorry, I was a little bit slow on that slide. So Baha'u'llah says, the light of a good character surpasseth the light of the sun and the radiance thereof. And when we talk about character, there are hundreds, literally, of character qualities, which are also known as virtues, that each of us can develop. I've given you here a sample: compassion, dependability, flexibility, perseverance, respect, service, and truthfulness are all wonderful qualities for us to practice within a relationship. And the Baha'i writings talk about us having dual nature. So we have a higher nature that is all of those spiritual qualities, and then we have a lower nature that includes things like injustice or lying and those sorts of things. So our noble qualities are our higher nature, and our goal in life is to expand our higher nature and shrink our lower nature so that we become more and more spiritual as we go through life. So I want you to now think about, if you had a higher nature filled with many, many character qualities, how might that contribute to you having a really excellent couple relationship and marriage? So if you think about truthfulness or patience, any of these qualities, if you had them in abundance and both you and your spouse had these qualities and practiced with them with each other, you can imagine that the relationship or the marriage would be more likely to be peaceful, would be more likely to be harmonious, and that the couple would have less conflict and more love between the two of them. When each of us, though, thinks about our character, sometimes you might feel a little anxiety, like, what if I don't have enough character qualities? What if your character bucket is a little emptier than you want it to be? What are the implications of that when you are looking at being in a relationship? Well, I would submit to you that it's a challenge, and it's one that absolutely must be taken on before you head into a relationship. The Baha'i writings say each of us is responsible for our own lives, and that perfecting our own life and character requires all our attention, all our willpower, all our energy. The challenge for us is, how do we grow? How do we actually improve our character? And again, the Baha'i writings say that if we turn to God and to Baha'u'llah in prayer, that we have a lot of power in making these character changes. We are also asked to use our own willpower in mastering ourselves, so that when we want to be kinder, when we want to be more patient, when we want to be more dependable, we have the power to choose to make changes in our behavior, in our words, so that our character qualities get stronger. Often in the relationship and marriage field, you will hear about personality. And personality is important. It helps us look at, can we get along with someone that we are going to be living with? But our personality tends to stay pretty constant, and it's not something that usually we head into trying to specifically try and grow and change. Character, on the other hand, is something that on a minute-by-minute, day-by-day basis, we can bring ourselves to account, as Baha'u'llah says, on a daily basis, and look to how can we be better the next day. So what might motivate you to engage in character growth? So you might think about something happening at work. You have difficulty getting along with a coworker, and you start to notice, maybe I'm a little weak on a character quality. Or maybe you've gotten into a relationship and there's conflict and there's problems, and you start to recognize that, maybe I'm really not strong in patience or responsibility or humility. And there's a reason to change. The other motivating factor is, if you are strong in these character qualities, you will be better as a wife, better as a husband, better as a parent. So what are some practical ways you can strengthen your character qualities? I have found assessments to be helpful. I do the Character Foundations assessment that was developed and validated by a Baha'i. The practical ways, though, that you then head into changing your behavior are to very specifically set goals. So you learn about a character quality. Perhaps you don't really understand what gentleness looks like. You might take a look around you to see, what does it look like when someone's being gentle? What does it look like when someone's being gentle with a pet, with a child? And write down very specific goals so that each day you can look at, have you been more gentle that day? Or whatever quality you've chosen, perhaps it's moderation. Were you able to moderate your actions so that you didn't go overboard with something? One of the fundamental character qualities that the Baha'i writings talk about is truthfulness. Truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues. It helps us progress spiritually in life, and it makes it more possible for us to acquire all of the virtues, because we are then able to be truthful with ourselves. And when we're truthful with other people, trust builds. What I find in my marriage is that because my husband and I have a commitment to be truthful all the time with each other, there is a very, very high level of trust. And building trust is something that's very fundamental for all relationships. It helps us relax. If Phil and I know that we're going to be truthful with each other, if we trust our ability to handle money, to respond well in difficulties, then we're able to be ourselves with each other. We're able to relax and share whatever it is that we need to share with each other. And the Baha'i writings talk about the purpose of the one true God in manifesting himself is to summon all mankind to truthfulness and sincerity, to piety and trustworthiness, to resignation and submissiveness to the will of God, to forbearance and kindliness, to uprightness and wisdom. So there's a whole string of virtues there for you. And the more that our character strengthens, the better the actions are, the better our words are when we're interacting with other people. So, here's the very clear guidance in the Baha'i writings and why character is so very important. The design of courtship, or the process of being in a relationship and moving on towards marriage, requires as a very fundamental element that the couple get to know each other's character thoroughly. And they are to think about the effect on each other of your words, your actions, of having many, many character strengths. But then we're also asked to look at the effect of your character on the children who will be the fruit of the marriage. If a couple has many, many character strengths, those will get passed along to the children. The children will then be raised with good characters, and they are then empowered to go on and establish strong and healthy marriages. So what would help you learn about someone else's character? And this is not easy. What helps you to observe character in someone else? It's a challenge if you're in a long-distance relationship, because it really requires you to see and watch and observe someone else in action. The observation process requires you to, first of all, know your own character. And it then requires you to study the topic of character. How can you know if you have the character quality of responsibility? How can you know if your partner has the character quality of responsibility? You have to know that it includes things like paying your bills on time. What about dependability? Do they show up on time? So if you understand what each of these qualities is about, then you are empowered to begin to observe someone else. And there are 3 areas that observation is vital in. The first one is words. What does the person consistently say that reflects character strengths? So do they show compassion? The ability to understand you and be in your world and understand things from your perspective. Are they consistently truthful? The next area of observation is your actions. What does the person consistently do that reflects character strengths? Are they dependable? What about orderliness? If orderliness is something that's important to you, and you have a partner who does not have that as a strength, you can imagine and visualize what would it be like to live with someone who was consistently disorderly. The third area of observation is actions. What do they not do? So if they consistently do not obey laws, for instance, they go through stop signs, always speeding, they don't adhere to guidelines that are in all areas of our life. Perhaps it's a law that says file your taxes, and they never file their taxes. What about self-discipline? What are the things that they restrain themselves so that they don't cause harm to other people? So these three areas of observation are vital. What does the person consistently say, consistently do, and consistently not do? And be observing their character qualities all the way through that process. So let's do some specific examples. What character quality strengths would you spot in these scenarios? Perhaps you plan dates and events together as a couple. Maybe thoughtfulness, dependability, cooperation. What about when your partner acknowledges and celebrates the special occasions in your life? So enthusiasm, perhaps? What weaknesses might you spot in these scenarios? Your partner doesn't introduce you when running into friends. So maybe they're not so strong on courtesy or friendliness. Or you're talking seriously together and your partner starts texting friends or answering the phone. Maybe respect might be a quality that the person could strengthen. What kinds of qualities would make the following scenarios be successful? Maybe moving furniture together. Unity, cooperation, maybe creativity. One partner loses a job. Here's a good one for compassion. Teaching your partner how to drive. Probably patience. One of the warnings that is in the Baha'i writings that sometimes trips us up, there can be an assumption for that anyone of faith, it doesn't have to be a Baha'i, but anyone who believes in God or has some strong faith, that therefore automatically we assume that their character is absolutely wonderful. And then we end up in a marriage with them and discover that actually they have a number of weaknesses. And so we need to link, but also separate these two things and not assume that someone with a strong spiritual belief system is automatically someone of good character. We still have to do our work in observing. So what kinds of words and actions can contribute to increasing unity in a couple relationship? I love you. May I help you? Let's work on this together. What kinds of words and actions can cause disunity instead? Science has made it very clear that character attacks are highly, highly damaging to a relationship. So anytime we are using these virtue words and instead turn them around and attack someone, you're so irresponsible, it goes right to the heart and soul of someone and causes a great deal of damage. What qualities can we pair with truthfulness? So remember, I said, my husband and I have this commitment to speak the truth to each other. But we have to be a little cautious of how we share the truth with someone. It's always good to pair truthful words with kindness, with courtesy, with love. Tactfulness is also a good one. So what increases trust in a couple relationship? Dependability, truthfulness. And what can disrupt trust in a relationship? Things like infidelity, of course. So here's this reminder again, before you marry. The guidance in the Baha'i teachings is very, very crystal clear that we are to become thoroughly acquainted with the character of each other. We are to study each other's character. We are to investigate each other's character. We are to thoroughly know the character of each other before we start to make decisions that will affect the rest of our lives. And if we do that, it is one of the significant contributors to having a healthy, happy marriage. Baha'u'llah talks about marriage in this way. When he desired to manifest grace and beneficence to men and set the world in order, he revealed observances and created laws. Among them, he established the law of marriage, made it a fortress for well-being and salvation. So if you think about this fortress for well-being, how vitally important it is that there be many, many character strengths in the couple that are operating at all times, for the marriage, for the sake of the children, for the sake of anyone you invite into your home when you show hospitality. And the Baha'i writings also talk about marriage as being a physical and spiritual union, for the couple to be considered as one soul. So again, if you both have all of these wonderful higher nature spiritual qualities, how much easier it would be to be considered as one soul. And the Baha'i writings talk about ever improving the spiritual life of each other when they talk about the married couple. And so together, you continue to help each other to strengthen these qualities, because these qualities will be with you for all of eternity. So here I have for you to end my contact information so that you can reach out to me as needed. My email address is Suzanne at marriagetransformation.com, and there's a contact information as well on my website. Information about coaching, assessments, books is on marriagetransformation.com. I offer online courses at transformationlearningcenter.com, and there's general information about the Baha'i views on relationships and marriage that you can find on Baha'iMarriage.net, including many sources of quotations. So thank you for being with me today, and now it's time for Sherry to lead us through the question and answer period.
Thank you, Suzanne. That was very interesting and insightful. I'm sure it gave everyone a lot to think about. So if you have any questions, like I said, please write them in the chat. In the chat, it will not be seen by everyone. It will come privately to me, and I'll present your question to Suzanne. In the meantime, I have one to start us. Is that all right?
Go ahead and let me say one thing, and then you can start.
Sure.
That is, this is fairly wide open in terms of questions. So anything to do with relationships or marriage that is on your mind and heart, it doesn't necessarily have to do directly with character, since that was the focus of the presentation, but anything that anyone wants to raise, they can feel free to post in the chat for Sherry. Go ahead, Sherry, now you can start us off.
Thank you. So my question is this. I happen to have been watching some of your other videos, Suzanne, and I know that you started this work really saying yes to an element of service and an ask of being of service to your community, and then you saw the need for this work. Have you observed any particular area where we fall short in doing that investigation and becoming thoroughly acquainted with each other's character? Like, is there a stumbling block or a blind spot that we seem to have that we're not aware
of? Well, I can think of one right away. The Baha'i quotations include one that talks about if someone has 9 bad qualities and 1 good one, we are to focus on the 1 good one. And this is generally in the context of, your neighbors or people that you're interacting with. The guidance is to focus on what's good about people, which is absolutely fundamental as a spiritual practice. It helps us get along with all kinds of people much better than if we focus on their negative qualities. When it comes to preparing for marriage, however, it's really wise to look at the guidance, which says to study, thoroughly know, to look at the entirety of someone's character. It doesn't mean that that you want to focus and criticize somebody's weaknesses, but you need to very clearly understand what someone's strengths are and what growth areas someone has, and really assess the impact and the implications for that. If you think about being married to someone who for every one good quality, they have 9 bad ones, you can imagine the quality of the marriage. It would be extraordinarily difficult to function as a couple, to function in harmony, to raise children. And so I see sometimes people will get tripped up with, I'm only allowed to look at somebody's positive quality, and they forget to look at the implications of the broader picture when it comes to this specific incidence of when you're preparing for marriage.
Thank you. I have a question to put to you that came from the group. This question says, Abdu'l-Baha spoke about character being very hard to change after the age of 15. But we know that we grow and we change through life. So can you speak more to this, to our ability to change our characters?
Yeah, well, and the first thing it points to is the absolute vital necessity of parents to know what they're doing, right? Because they've got those critical few years to raise children to have excellent characters, and it's an opportunity that does get more and more difficult as we age. What I find in my life and the lives of my clients is that with age it often is slower. It might take practicing for more weeks or more months for the change to stick. And I think the other challenge we've got is we're all busy, right? We live in a world where the demands on us as adults are many and varied. And so in order for us to be successful, it requires us to be very self-disciplined. And that means on a daily basis, or as each thing happens in our lives, to be training ourselves to automatically look at what character quality was weak, what character quality did we practice well. So it's a level of discipline. What motivates me is this concept of recognizing that our character qualities are what we take with us to the next world to be of service to others as our soul goes on. So just like we're born into this world, with fingers and toes, our virtues are the fingers and toes in the next world. And so I think, all right, I've got this limited amount of time here on this earth to make sure that my character is in very good shape. And so it provides me this level of daily motivation to pay attention. And my preference is not to wait till the end of the day. If I do something or something happens or something gets said, I prefer to kind of take myself to account pretty quickly and rebalance as quickly as I can. I don't know if that completely answered the question, but I'm going to stop talking at this point.
That's good, because a few more have come in. So we've got some more ground to cover. One of the questions that has come in is, have you observed anything that leads to more success in marriages which happen later in life?
Yeah, which I've done. And so my husband and I are 8 years into marriage. Well, the first thing is character. It doesn't matter how old you are, still you have to make sure that the character qualities and the character strengths are there. I think what I would say, though, is probably the single biggest factor in our being successful is that I introduced him to the concept of consultation on our third date. And we started practicing consultation right away, which is a Baha'i practice of building understanding and reaching mutual decisions together in a very peaceful way without conflict. So he was not a Baha'i. We started dating, and I introduced him to the importance of having a very low conflict marriage, and that absolutely everything was to come into this process of consultation. For us to be truthful with each other, examine everything together, not hide things from each other. And so now consultation is part of the culture of our marriage. Everything goes into consultation. Everything that comes up with our children goes through that process. I also have to say flexibility. As you age, everything's a little different, and your bodies are starting to go through changes, and you may be a little bit more set in your ways, and so being able to laugh, to tease each other, to accept each other's quirks, and to be flexible in the process of establishing the relationship all helps.
Thank you, Suzanne. Lots of questions coming in, so I'm just going to keep going and moving on. There's a question that says, are there any character weaknesses or areas of development that we should pay particular attention to?
Whew. You mean like take 400 qualities and me say which ones? Just pick one? Well, truthfulness, which is one of the ones that I definitely stressed in the presentation. I guess I'll put another one in the mix that I did not mention, and that's commitment. Which is a quality that I see lots of relationships struggling with. So the commitment to be faithful to each other, the commitment to walk with each other through whatever difficulties come up, the recognition that you have made a vow to each other, and in a Baha'i context or a Christian context or whatever, that would be a vow before God. To regard that vow as sacred. And to feel like you are committed as equal partners to collaborate and work together in unity to to deal with whatever comes up. You know, we've just gone through really difficult few weeks with a family member being seriously injured in an accident, and so to dance together with who's going to look after what responsibilities, how do we manage the finances, how do we manage whatever it is that comes up, was born out of our commitment to each other and our commitment to our family to do whatever it is that we needed to do for the outcome to be the best that it could be.
Thank you. So we're moving, the next two questions, I'll ask them one at a time, but they tend to go into the same area, which brings in the issue of culture. Mm-hmm. So the first question says, can you share insights regarding culture and character? How does one distinguish the two? Do we consider culture as something that can change through the process of marriage?
That is a complex question, isn't it? So I've just noticed that as you ask the question now, it's coming up on my screen. So I'm not sure why or how that just happened, but it's helpful. So, yeah, I wonder what the person means by culture. So let me just head into this and see. So the first thing is character qualities or virtues tend to be universal. Every scripture on the planet, most cultures, most languages have at least some set of virtues. So the interpretation or the understanding of how each one works or that kind of thing might change from culture to culture. But as a whole, the qualities of our soul is a universal human thing. So culture and marriage then, if someone comes from one culture and they're marrying somebody from another culture, they are faced with always looking for the points of commonality and harmony. This is for us, no matter who it is that we're getting along with, right? But definitely in a marriage context. But there are books that can help walk you through some of the challenges. Marriage Can Be Forever Preparation Counts is one of them. Certainly we've put lots of questions in there because you want to understand what does your partner's culture say about equality. Maybe your partner is committed to the equality of women and men. Maybe they have been raised in a culture where that was absolutely not the situation, and they have absorbed some of the perhaps negative behaviors. It's important for the couple to really spend time understanding each other's culture. And it can be as simple as, how do you observe holidays together? How do you celebrate a birthday together? What are the things that you saw in your culture growing up that affected family life, and how would that show up if you got together? What I see tripping up people at times is assuming that because you both have the same belief system, culture doesn't matter. And culture has so affected each of them that it's not until they get into the marriage that they start to realize that they have very different perspectives and ways of handling all kinds of things. And it's really important to have those conversations and that understanding, to spend time with each other's families, if at all possible, before heading into marriage, so that they understand the culture of each other and how it might affect them, and can they live with it?
And kind of building on that question is the next question, which says, it starts with a comment and then it asks for your thoughts on this comment. The comment being, most people I know who are divorced are people of good character, but who have different attitudes about particular issues, and that includes cultural expectations or levels of maturity.
Mm-hmm.
Can you comment?
Yeah, well, this is why I'm passionate about marriage preparation, because it's not just about character. Character is fundamental, but there are 100 topics that they need to thoroughly consult about and explore before they ever think about getting married. How do you handle money? You know, are you spenders? Are you savers? How do you show respect towards your parents? How are you going to handle your parents as you age? You know, if one of you has children, then training in being a step family is really smart. You know, there are so many topics. What are your beliefs about disciplining children? What about continuing to learn, going back to school? I haven't counted the number of questions that are in marriage can be forever preparation counts, but there's got to be a couple thousand of them, I think, because there are so many things that people need to explore and consult about and understand. And, you know, it's not a perfect process. There are still always surprises after you get married, but if couples are thorough about the process, then for the most part, what I observe is that they are less likely to have conflict and less likely to divorce.
Thank you. And another question, a third question that also kind of follows on this trail of the other things outside of character that need to be considered. And so this question said, what about personality and good psychological health?
Yeah, so there are fewer quotations in the Baha'i writings about personality than there are about character in this context. And, you know, it's clear that everyone has a personality, and understanding each other's personality traits is an important part of marriage preparation. What's key, I think, is putting it in the context of unity. Can you live with this person in harmony? And, you know, what are the differences of personality? There are some differences that only become difficulties if you don't know about them or understand them. One of the ones that I see consistently in couples as a challenge is if one of them is an introvert and one of them's an extrovert. And I define those in terms of energy batteries. So if someone is an introvert, they need time alone in order to recharge their energy batteries, and time with people tends to drain their energy batteries. If someone is an extrovert, they need to be with other people and out doing activities in order to recharge their energy batteries. So understanding that about each other means that, you know, you can inquire, you know, honey, do you need some time alone right now? Or, you know, do we need to arrange a social event so that each other's energy batteries are handled? It becomes a conflict, however, if we consistently try and force a partner who's quite different from us into the situations that we need as opposed to what they need. And I see that often as a challenge in a community like the Baha'i community that is very social, lots and lots of activities going on, it takes responsibility on the part of the extrovert partner to really look after the well-being of the introvert partner, and maybe they don't go to everything. And so differences in personality like that need to be visible in order to be managed and to determine, can you live with the personality of the other person. And character and personality both require you to see somebody in action. There are a lot of long distance relationships that happen in the Baha'i community and elsewhere these days, where you are dependent on the person reporting about themselves. And there's too much that gets missed. And so you need to see somebody in a wide variety of circumstances, doing community service, with their family, shopping, eating out in public, all, just every possible activity that then helps you to really understand and see how the person is. And you need to see each of you with other people, because you might demonstrate character and personality traits with each other in a different way than if you see interactions happening with other people. It's been tough during COVID, during the restrictions that have happened for people to do that. And, at one point I moved from one state to another state in order to actually watch somebody in action, and they turned out to be a poor marriage partner. So I was very grateful for having made that choice to do that. Personality is important, but if I have to balance, character is more important, because you can apply your character qualities to get along with each other's personality quirks.
I have a really interesting question here. It says, how do you suggest protecting yourself against the power of love to make you blind to those less desirable character qualities? It's a good question.
Well, it is. And the Universal House of Justice, the senior governing body for the Baha'i community globally, has given us some guidance. So they encourage us to check with our friends, with our family. The Baha'u'llah has put in place a requirement, a paired requirement. The first is that the couple has complete freedom to choose each other, and they must completely freely choose each other as partners, with no coercion from anyone. And then after they have chosen each other, in order to protect family unity, the parents have the right to give consent to the marriage. If the parents observe character problems in the couple, then they might raise it as part of the discussion about consent to marry. It is the norm in much of society these days for a couple to just simply spend time on their own. And so certainly if you are out and involved with other people, they are in a position to consult with and help you to make good decisions. And it's not easy, right? We've when the hormones are pumping and the feelings are strong, we can definitely be blinded. One of the things that I also recommend to couples, I'm certified to do a prepare assessment that has the couple both do this sort of research-based assessment, and I end up with a report, and it gives the couples the opportunity to see many things that they might not have seen otherwise. The Character Foundations assessment is also a good choice because it's a neutral instrument, and they can then share with each other the information if they choose to. And it's not an easy thing.
So I'll just remind everyone that if you're sitting on a question and you're not quite sure, now would be the time to ask it, because we have, less than half an hour left, maybe 20 minutes, and I'd hate to see us end the call and you go off to bed wishing that you'd had the courage to ask it. It's just coming to me. No one will know. So fire away. One just came in. Let me look at that one for a sec. Okay, so this one says, our culture often puts emphasis on love languages and the needs of individuals, which can confound our assessment of character if we are too focused on what that person is bringing to the relationship. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so they've paired together culture with love languages. So let me tease that apart just a little bit. One of my colleagues in this field is Dr. Gary Chapman. So Dr. Gary Chapman has written a series of books about the 5 love languages. And so many people on this call may be familiar with his work. What he has done is identify 5 different ways of using your words and your actions to show love to someone else. And he has made it clear that within marriage, couples understanding that expressing love in different ways may or may not be received as loving by the other person. And so he indicates, I'll do my best here to remember the 5. So gift giving, words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time. No, I'm going to get stuck on the 5th one here. At any rate, it'll come to me in the middle of the night tonight. But these 5 love languages. So, for instance, my primary love language is quality time. So, if I receive quality time from my husband, I have a very clear experience of love from him. If he makes the sacrifice to spend that time with me and talk and that sort of thing, then I'm clear he loves me. And the other languages work in a similar way. So the person who raised this question made it sound like it's sort of a self-focused thing. What I have noticed is it can be a helpful practice to identify what really communicates love to you. Everybody's busy. If the one that's most important to your spouse is known, then the actions happen to really communicate love to your partner. And what happens is if one of you keeps giving to the other one something that doesn't really communicate love to you, like for instance, if getting gifts is not really important to you and your partner just simply keeps giving you gifts but never gives you what's most important, then there starts to be this disunity, this harmony, this dissonance that's there in the relationship. So that's kind of the principle of things. If couples can align and practice the primary love language with each other, it can be an opportunity to very quickly turn around a problem in a marriage and have it be more unified and more harmonious. So, and we have a tendency to give the one we most want to receive, and it may not be the right one for the other person. So it's just an opportunity to do that well. All right, now you're going to have to remind me, what was the other part of the question?
That's okay. I was going to say I've had a few who were very eager to help and who suggested acts of service was the fifth one.
Thank you. Of course.
No, I think you addressed that question. Another one has come in saying, this is also very interesting, age differences between potential spouses. Is there anything in particular you could speak to regarding possible age differences?
Yeah, this has come up a few times with my clients. In the greater scheme of things, supposedly our soul has no age. So, if you're going to be as one soul together, technically it wouldn't matter, the age difference as long as one of you is legal, right? So that's the kind of bigger spiritual picture. There are practical considerations that sometimes people get focused on the spiritual and they don't stop to realize. So the Baha'i writings are very clear that marriage is both physical and spiritual, that the spiritual is more important, but definitely physical is part of it. And in this world, marriage is a very physical entity. And I don't just mean sexually, obviously that's a piece of it, but you do dishes together, you diaper babies together, you look after each other when you're sick. Just, it's a very physical state to be in. And sometimes couples don't stop and think about, well, can we have babies? With the age difference, if one is very much older, is this something that's even possible to accomplish? It's wise to also take a look at, life experience. What I see happen sometimes is that if one partner is quite a bit older than the other, they have a tendency to behave like a parent as opposed to a partner. They might start looking at their partner as being someone that they need to take care of and instruct and just interact with as adult to child, as opposed to being two adults. It's also important to really look at a level of maturity. Are both of you in a position to handle life in a mature fashion? Just trying to think if there's other things. One of the Enrich assessment that I offer to couples is customized depending on the life circumstances of the couple. And so when a couple is older, it starts to include things, asking them to consider things like income and deteriorating health and that kind of thing. So, the couple needs to be aware that if one is considerably older than the other, that caregiving may happen sooner than they would want it to happen. If the person starts to mentally deteriorate and so on, that might then require spending, many, many years looking after a partner. And in the greater scheme of things, it's not the most important factor. It's just simply something to take into consideration. And I just remember there was a previous question where someone asked about mental well-being that we didn't address, and that one is is very important in terms of, you know, is the person psychologically healthy? You know, if they've had trauma in their lives, have they gone through counseling and dealt with the with the trauma release from their bodies and minds and hearts and souls? And if there's a history of you know, bipolar or that kind of thing, how does that affect behavior? If there's a history of addictions, are they active? Have they been treated and supported and so on? So there are a lot of factors that have a mental health component that can affect couples that are important to understand about each other before heading into marriage, and know that no matter how much you prepare, there may still be changes and things that happen later on.
Thank you for remembering and going back to that about psychological well-being and mental health. I have two questions that are very similar, so I'm going to read them together. They're not completely similar, but they're in the same area again. The first says, do you have advice or guidance on how to explain the importance of chastity in relationships where one side may not have religious beliefs? That's the first question. And the second question says, today's youth are living in a society that emphasizes physical and sexual aspects of relationships. What do you recommend for young couples to focus more on learning and knowing each other's spiritual characters?
It's such a challenging topic, isn't it? It's so, sex has become in our world so dominating and so difficult to get away from. It is completely through the media of all types, and and our young people are being exposed to pornography at very young ages and to all kinds of challenges. So we could probably spend the next 3 hours on that topic. So let me see what I can do to be brief. I will mention a book that didn't get flashed here at the beginning. So this book called Be Brave and Arise. I wrote for Baha'i men aged 15 and up. So it's got 4 chapters on sexual health in it. So it's a good resource for parents in assisting their teen boys in particular. Most of the stories are from males in here, but a lot of the content is certainly applicable to females as well. One of the things that, all right, well, let's take a look at the word chastity. Back when marriage transformation started, 2003, at that point I was using the word chastity interchangeably with abstinence, which is the just say no to sex. And the Universal House of Justice released a Baha'i quotation, a newly translated quotation that year, that said, one speck of chastity is greater than 100,000 years of worship and a sea of knowledge. And we went, oh, wait a minute, maybe it's not just abstinence. You know, if chastity is that big of a thing. And so I've spent the last 18 years trying to understand chastity. And I think that I still have a long way to go. We all have a long way to go to understand it. I will give you, though, some of my current understanding, which is that it is about filling your life with so many positive things, so many positive people, so many positive activities, that this dominance about sex lessens, that it's not so all-consuming. Chastity is, about what we choose to watch, what we choose to read. It is having our keeping our soul as clean as we possibly can, to avoid seeing sexual images and so on, all of which is virtually impossible in our world. So we do our best with it. And one of the things that I have observed that is unhelpful and counterproductive is young people feeling like they are being beat over the head with chastity as a word, as a concept, as behaviors. For all of us, we have the freedom of choice. And so, it's looking at or training ourselves and our young people with how to make good choices, to understand the consequences of choices, and to ask for and get help when needed. So, our kids are being exposed, many of them, to pornography from age 8 or 9. By the time they're teens, they're in deep, deep trouble with it. And so seeking resources and seeking help is vitally important, and it's vitally important before marriage, because participating in pornography is a form of infidelity. Right? If you're in a relationship and your partner is turning to other people, other women, other men, whatever, that it's a form of infidelity, so highly destructive to the marriage, and so professional help is needed. And we do have actually Baha'i counselors who have specialized in that topic. What I see couples get in trouble with at times is that one of them has a problem with addiction to pornography, and they view the Baha'i marriage vow and the act of getting married as something that will magically purify them. And then they end up in marriage and discover that it's bigger than the magical saying of a vow, and that help is needed. But there are lots of good resources now to help people. One of the things that's a need in the community, it's not necessarily something that's a need I can necessarily fulfill, but I will say that there is a need for really good materials for our teens and preteens on the topic of sex and chastity and relationships and that kind of stuff. So most of my stuff is like age 15 or age 18 and up, and so there's a need. If someone feels inspired, I'm happy to assist the process. So I probably wandered all over the place here. Why don't you take a look, Sherry, at your 2 questions again and tell me if I need to redirect.
I'll just repeat them, but I think you addressed both of them. Explaining the importance of chastity in relationships where one side may not have, you addressed that. And the other was, because the society puts so much emphasis on the physical and sexual aspect of relationships, what do you recommend for young couples to focus more on knowing each other's spiritual character?
Yeah. So the first one, though, it is really hard. I struggled with it. I see lots of people struggling with it, if you're dating somebody who just absolutely does not understand why someone would not want to have sex before marriage, it's a very difficult thing to navigate and to and to explain, and sometimes people lose a partner because of it, and so you get scared, and all that kind of stuff. So bottom line, it's not easy. I have done my best to put materials, books and stuff together that include the topic, so that one of my roles as an author writing these books is that I become the third party. So it's not you as the partner raising it as an issue, it's let's look at this and learn together. And then I'm raising the difficult questions about sex, about chastity, about your histories, about what are the implications of the choices and that kind of stuff. So it used me. So it's, then you can say, let's look at this book together, or let's look at this chapter together and talk about what is it that's best for us, and what might work for us and not work for us, and that kind of thing.
Thank you. So I have one question remaining, which I think will do well to bring us to the end of our time together. And it's on a topic we haven't talked about yet, so that's good. Something new. The question, well, I mean, we've talked about it a bit, but not directly. The question is focusing on interfaith marriages. So when people of two different faiths come together in marriage. And the question says, from what you've seen in your work, how successful are relationships between Baha'is and those of other faiths who are strong in their faith, to the extent that they feel theirs is the only true faith? At the same time, as seen from a personal experience, the fact that they are a person of faith, a person would demonstrate a great deal of willingness and desire to improve and strengthen their character. So I guess it's just a question, but your observation of couples when they come from two different faiths.
And it's complicated. Yeah, I have couples right now that are clients where there's more of a struggle because one chooses to not believe in God or in religion at all, and so it's it can be difficult to navigate. So if there are two different faiths, that's the first place to look at. Is there harmony? Do we both believe in God? For me, the next question in dating someone who was not a Baha'i and at that point not actively involved in the Christian church, but that was his background, was, can we pray together? And so we started on our second date with trying that out. Could we pray together? Could he do his version of praying? Could I do my version of praying? Could that be something that brought us together in unity? The third area that we are encouraged anytime we are with someone of a different faith is to look for points of commonality. So more often than not, there are a huge number of things that the couple can agree on. Where things can become challenging often is when there's children. How are you going to, what are you going to raise the children with in terms of training them with certain beliefs? Are they going to go to the worship centers for both? What is it that, how are the children going to be raised? And sometimes interfaith couples just decide to not raise them with anything, and the children can make up their own mind when they're older. sometimes that leaves the children without a really good foundation, though, of belief in God or prayer and so on. There are lots of interfaith couples who do very well and who stay together better than some same faith couples, right? So it's, you know, it's not a, there's no guarantees either way. I think, you know, what a couple would have to examine is whether they have either of them have a belief that is so diametrically opposite of something that the other believes that they recognize it would be a constant source of disunity. So the Baha'i writings are clear, right? If religion is causing disunity, you're better off without religion. So the couple needs to really carefully look at how to navigate and how to be harmonious. So with my husband, who actually is over the last year has decided to become a Baha'i, we went through 7 years of him not being a Baha'i, and my role was to regularly share with him very small quotations from the Baha'i Faith that I knew aligned with his thinking and his beliefs. But before we got married, we had very frank discussions about, all right, here's my perspective of who Baha'u'llah is and the Baha'i Faith, and he was fine with it as long as I agreed to not ever beat him over the head. You know, that I didn't in any way do or say things with him that were critical or judgmental or forceful. That as long as that he was perfectly fine with me being a Baha'i and supportive of it, as long as I didn't act in a way that was you know, damaging.
Well, I think that the questions, answers, discussion, and the presentation were all super helpful. I feel like we've covered almost everything in the chat. There are a few people who have messaged me with suggestions for you, Suzanne, that you could possibly take into consideration as you move forward in your work, which I will be happy to share with you after we've closed the Zoom meeting. So if you have...
Thank you, because I won't have the chance after we sign off. Thank you for your generosity in making suggestions, even though I don't even know what they are yet. It's sometimes I am very isolated in my little home office here in Tennessee, and it's just wonderful to be able to be with everybody and to be sharing with all of you and seeing some familiar faces, and just the opportunities for all of you to encourage people to thoroughly prepare for marriage are abounding, and please do that. The opportunities to encourage married couples to be in learning and action and learning all the way through their marriage. So many couples, you know, they'll get 6, 7 years in and all of a sudden they're in trouble because they have not been continuing to learn in the first years of the marriage. So to please keep in learning mode for a lifetime, to be encouraging other people to be in learning mode for a lifetime. We now have there's a community-based learning book about family and marriage that has now been released across the planet for people to be encouraging other people to be studying as part of what's known as the Ruhi series of books. So there's now one on marriage and marriage preparation. So please, as many people as possible, engage in supporting our marriages and families. it's the fundamental building block for unity around the planet, and so the stronger our marriages are, the stronger our families are, the stronger the planet is, and the more peaceful the planet is.
And what I love so much about this presentation is that it reminds all of us of our active role in creating those building blocks. You know, if you watch any kind of movie at all, the impression is you float through life until you fall into love and get married. And it's a very passive thing. It just happens to you. And then before you know it, you're married. But it's not a passive thing. We are an active participant. We have a big responsibility to God and to ourselves and to our communities to do a good job on investigating each other's characters. So thank you, Suzanne. Thank you to the Counseling Committee in Ottawa for making tonight happen. Thank you to all of you for coming and sharing your evening with us. And if you need any follow-up, Suzanne has given all kinds of ways to get in touch with her. And also you can get in touch with the Counseling Committee if you wish. Just so everyone knows, I'm getting tons of messages. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This was wonderful. So Suzanne, the consensus is it was a wonderful evening, and I thank you for that.
You're quite welcome. Thank you all.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for coming.